Welcome back to Kyle and Nick on Film. Today we're going to continue our series on the pool hall junkies, those crazy kids who like to bet it all while playing pool. And we got a story here today it's a little bit stranger. I guess we do have a character that's betting it all. He's fighting a supernatural creature on the snooker table.
I guarantee it. Well, in the 80s, this is one of the surreal cult movies, right? This is one of those. It's hard to find. It's very underground. Not really known in America, but kind of in the subgroups and undergrounds in Europe. This was actually pretty popular, and not actually on TV on a regular basis.
Well, I think what we've learned with Pool Hall Junkies is that there are not enough good pool movies. I think you really kind of go into the deepest reaches of this area to find these kinds of films. Yeah. And of course, last week we talked Pool Hall Junkies, which is just a real movie.
It was a movie, yeah.
But today we're going to continue on with this story with Billy the Kid and the Green Baize Vampire. So join us. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and today we're talking about an obscure movie that I think very few people in America know about. It came out in the mid-'80s. I think Wikipedia says 87.
87, yeah.
And it might not even be right. I think it's like 86 or 85.
Yeah.
It's a musical. It's a horror movie. Well, it's not really a horror movie. It's a Western. It's all these ingredients, and it's shot really, really weird. It looks like it's one of the first movies I think he's shot in 8-bit music.
Yeah,
it's almost like almost the beginning of an arcade.
And watching it for the first time, and of course I'm watching kind of an older stream of this film, so it might have just been some of the damage done to the film footage over the years. It doesn't, I know it was made on a shoestring budget. There probably wasn't anybody really protecting the copy of the film. Very unusual film. Definitely, as you said before, it's probably in the top 10 vampire musicals about snooker. If we can find 9.
Yeah, it's not really like pool, but it's snooker. It's a variation of.
Yeah. So of course we got Billy the Kid played by Phil Daniels, and the Green Baize Vampire. For those who don't know, Baize is the green felt-like substance that is on the table, played by Alan Armstrong. We also get Bruce Payne in an incredibly
Warlock.
early because he played the Warlock, I think in Warlock 3, or he was in a couple of the sequels. I think he wasn't in the original, but Bruce Payne has just been kind of throughout. He's even done some of the Howling movies. For those of you guys that deepened all the way out to Howling 6, he's there.
Yeah, he's like T.O. the One, right? He's like Philip Daniels' agent, getting him deals and stuff.
Yeah, so the story is that he gets in a little bit too deep and has to kind of set up this game between Billy Kid, a Western addict, if you will, who's pretty solid at snooker, a young kid, versus Alan Armstrong's Green Baize Vampire, who's kind of on the older side of things. He's been playing, he's almost on his way out, but he basically wants to kind of cripple this Billy Kid, take him out of snooker forever, on his way out too. And it's definitely an odd movie because I think it spends a lot of time at the beginning setting up this inevitable match. The setup is not very good. No. It's kind of all over the place, and it kind of touches on a lot of these elements that we just hint at but don't really break down enough.
The other thing is a timestamp, because a lot of things are popular at the time. Mm-hmm. So a musicals, it's very post-punk, so there's a lot of what we're going to find for a style, and a lot of after punk rock, what are we going to navigate for music or whatever. Also, snooker in England was very popular in mid-'80s, and it's a kind of a melodramatic variation of the two most popular snooker players at the time, which was Rick Riordan and somebody that's a variation of Billy the Kid, and it's played out here on a melodramatic kind of a cheap film.
Yeah, and I think I know that when they originally envisioned filming it, it was envisioned to be filmed on multiple sets and on as many locations as they could get it to realistically portray the film. Budgetary reasons constrict that, as we've all seen in the past. So it has this feeling that it was all shot in one big warehouse. Yeah. And that kind of helps with the claustrophobic feeling and kind of with the horror overtones. It's not really a horror movie, but if you put a vampire in it, you got to give some sort of darkness and dreariness to it. And I think that the claustrophobia of the film is
very condensed, right? Very confined spaces. I do it's very crafty choices of lighting. So they didn't really have a lot of stands of lights. So they had to use low lights and even the table illuminated. In certain scenes of being creative of backlighting, so it looks very dark, and you don't know who's that character in the background. A lot of labyrinth scenes, so it's very, very discombobulated. Like I'm sure certain sets were reused again or taken down. But very crafty lighting and very interesting editing. I think editing saves this movie because they're snapping the fingers and they cut to the scene, or a lot of just snip here, cut here, slices, which kind of play a part and makes it kind of more appealing.
Yeah, I think director Alan Clark, who is known for his like documentary work and for really gritty, realistic kind of portrayals, took a real hard left turn here and kind of playing around with it. And he's actually pretty successful in terms of the tone and the style, the ambience of the film. I think that above all else, it reminds you of things like Rocky Horror Picture Show, like those films that, man, if they had a budget, their style could just be off the chain. But he does the most with the limited budget he has. Right. And I think the editing too. There's some really great sweeping shots and how they portray, especially during the big match, how they go around and we see everybody who's watching the match. Then we get a couple of real close in shots,
like this evil,
but then we get close in on the ones who are like have all their money in the game and have all their stakes on what's going on. I think the editing is another really strong element that makes up for some of its bigger faults, and I would say the biggest one of all is I think the screenplay is just really bad. It's just really unpolished. I don't really know a lot of stuff. You don't really know what's going on. You're kind of just feeling your way through it. You're almost in the dark too.
It's a little bit of choppiness. There's really not any really flow for it. Direction of but the set direction where they have they do play a lot with color. So like a lot of the reds and the greens, they have a little the yellow for the westerns and stuff like that. And the nice thing is they actually did do their own shots.
Yeah, I think there was some training. There's some people around who were kind of able to help support, and as often as they could, that they were able to pull it off. And I think that's a really strong element to any billiard style film. Because you do have to get down and you have to watch the guy play. You don't see them actually playing. You do get that sense that you're watching a movie. Then I think that was one of the wins of like a film like The Hustler, which we've talked about previously. Is you get to watch these people actually play the game. You get to see the shots taking place. Or else it kind of falls apart. And for a film like this, who's already on the fringe of falling apart at all moments, that's very, very important. And that's kind of, I think, the gist of what this movie is it feels like it's 3 steps from the edge of falling apart and 3 steps from the edge of greatness. Where it's just kind of like really walking across, it's that tightrope walk where you could fall one way or the other. And it never really hits one or the other. It's just kind of this weird amalgam.
The other interesting component, it's very sparse, and I think it's intentionally so. You have a certain space where you're filming it, but you're not really filling up the scene. We talk about Sidney Lumet likes to fill up the scene. Where here you have very sparse props, very sparse environment, as well as being very confined. It's almost claustrophobic to be in this kind of film. And it's very abstract. That's one thing I wrote down in my notes. This is very abstract. I don't know. I don't think you ever see like a sky in this.
No, and that's why I think it was in one building. It may have been done in one night. Who knows? It's just kind of great point with that set decoration too, or lack of set decoration. That's what makes you feel like it could have been shot all in one room that was just redecorated with a different lighting and maybe just a couple people standing a different direction. It feels very guerrilla style. For me, the claustrophobia is a big win for it. I also, in relation to like Rocky Horror Picture Show, you really feel the passion of the performers. That's one thing that you can always give to a film if you know that it doesn't have the budget for anything too snazzy, if it doesn't have maybe the lighting it needs, doesn't have the editing or this writing that it needs. You can really give it your all from a performance standpoint. These are performers who know what movie they're in. And that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. I mean, it's great to have a title like that because that title is perfect for this movie. You know exactly what you're getting, and these performers get it too.
And that's I agree with you. The performances really sell this. They really are working hard to convince you of this environment exists. The other thing is the emergence kind of the arcade world bleeding a little bit into this. Arcades kind of not really introduced, but the music, the 8-bit, from the 80s. I think it's this almost the start. This is actually the beginning of 80s getting its own little style emerging from this. Yeah,
kind of sisterly to the more successful Repo Men kind of a film. Where it's just its own thing in the world, and it could have jumped off with a larger kind of subgenre if it really had found its footing. A couple of the songs actually choices are really interesting. Green Stamps is a weird one because I mean it's addictive and you're kind of playing with it a lot, but it's presented so early in the film that you don't really know like where we're sitting with any of our components. I was really taken with the Supersonic Sam's Cosmic Cafe sequence.
Yeah,
that's
what
one was criticized for its lack of like choreography. There's a lot to that scene with the lighting. There's a lot to it with the mood. And then there's all, you see these guys that are kind of all playing at their machines, but you see them all moving in unison. And it's kind of that,
80s
that cheaper kind of broken choreography where it's not really all in step, but it works. I think it works pretty well. I also liked I Bite Back. Because it reminded me of that Forgetting Sarah Marshall thing where the main character was writing a vampire musical and like this is it.
I had a tough time hearing this because I thought I fight back, and then at the second viewing, I bite back. No, yeah.
So I really appreciated that song because that song again knows what it's being. It knows what movie it's in. It's having fun with the material, even nonsensically so. And then there's even I'm the One, T.O.'s big song from Bruce Payne, where he's kind of selling his quest of like, I'm gonna get you guys together so I can pay off my debt.
Yeah, nice thing about especially with filming is a lot of this not the pool, not the circus shots, but everything else, the camera's always moving. So it gives you a certain little journey, a little bit entertaining as a lot of the dialogue's happening or the exchange. Except for two scenes, I think the Wednesday Man thing is kind of like a very threatening. The camera is still, but a lot of moving the camera to make it as appealing as possible. And
I like Wednesday Man is a very famous Star Wars actor. I believe Don Henderson, if I'm getting the name right. He actually appeared on the Death Star in like the big sequence where everyone's talking to Darth Vader right in A New Hope, and so like getting to see him kind of reprising his man in the shadows kind of persona was really fun to watch. Getting into we're talking about a bunch of the things that we enjoyed about the film, but we got to talk about how just kind of discombobulated that screenplay script stage is, because I think that's where the film loses me and kind of teeters off on the broken path of like what's going on here.
Yeah.
And
I agree with you.
A stronger screenplay could sell the wackiness of this larger than life world.
It could have given it a little more, like the dialogue is kind of throwaway. A lot of the dialogue is kind of like you need some kind of a punch maybe, and I don't like catchphrases, but something with dialogue so people can regurgitate, or a catchphrase can entertain the fans and use it as a way to elevate the story, merchandise the stories, promote it, or something like that. A lot of this, Americans, we don't really know these actors, but in the UK, they're very popular TV people. So a lot of the people that you see have speaking lines, you would know from previous TV shows on the UK, and I think that's what's the popularity more over in Europe than here in America, that they recognize a lot of these people who are having fun with this kind of silly, ridiculous, abstract film, doing serious stuff on serious TV shows in UK, having fun in a movie like this. And
especially back in the 80s, when you're making a movie, you have to have performers. If you don't have money, you have to have performers that are going to make their calls, make their scenes in order. We cannot fail. That's when you get TV actors, because they're the people who work a new episode every single week. We got to get it done in 4 days, or else we go over to that fifth day and no one wants to be working on that fifth day. And I think that's kind of another win of just having that kind of talent in a film that doesn't require a complete gravitas.
Yeah. Another mention is Alfred Hitchcock uses a lot of the people that he uses for his TV show, the Alfred Hitchcock Hour, on Psycho. So he did make it cheap, make it fast, and know how to set up certain closed environment rooms. The TV people know how to do that. Yeah. And I think Alan Culler used a lot of TV people to set up this movie as well.
Probably because from his background of, kind of smaller and more documentary style filming, he didn't have that character, character direction that you would be so used to doing documentaries. You just you set it up, you have the conversation, you get what you need to out of that performance. And he kind of excelled a little bit in that area, but he just doesn't know how to land a story. I think editing saves the movie.
Yeah, like we mentioned before, editing saves the movie, and then try and be creative with the lighting. The car scenes where they're not really driving anywhere, they're just flicking the lights.
I always love when you can do that in a unique way, because they're not driving. But I guess overall, I feel like Billy the Kid and the Green Baize Vampire, I can't give it a full recommend unless you've got kind of like a B movie grindhouse kind of night going on and you want to just watch something weird. I don't think it's a good movie. I'm glad I saw it once. I don't feel like I'm going to be revisiting this one very often, but it's definitely a step up from Pool Hall Junkies last.
No, it's one of those things you bring up at parties. Like, have you heard about this movie that's a Western snooker musical vampire movie? Like, no. Well, here you go.
Yeah, and I know we were searching for another film to put in this week, and I think when I came across this one and the title, I don't know, in my head I was like, is this a snuff film? Is this an adult film? It kind of sounds like it's like one of those like maybe NC-17 dirty movies. Yeah. And then you kind of click on it and you're like, I still don't know what I feel about this movie. It wasn't until we started watching it that I kind of got a knack for what they're going for, even if it wasn't successful.
I kind of researched and everybody, I think if you watch obscure 60 movies, there is a movie called Billy the Kid versus Dracula.
Yes.
And I think
which we will do next year.
Yeah. And I think Alan Clark used that as a springboard to do this. Like, they did it in the 60s, had fun with it, like mixing horror with westerns. Let's do one with a musical and put snooker involved with it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and maybe he oversaw kind of what was coming in video games and stuff. We've got Mortal Kombat now where you can unlock Jason Voorhees, and we've got all these kind of weird mash 'em up kind of things. There's a lot of board games where you mash up two things. Like you kind of got something maybe ahead of its time. And just kind of couldn't coast on its critical acclaim.
I'm not going to give it a real strong recommendation, but I'm thinking if you love movies, if you love the underground film genres, and this is definitely one that you have to put on your radar to watch. And it's one of those. It's hard to find a copy. We got ours stolen at the VHS store my video store we used to work at. That's the only reason I remember this movie. So there are certain groups that do adhere to it, and it's still very popular in Europe.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to with a cult smash, is that you can't really recommend or not recommend. You just have to kind of come across it, and it either grabs you or it doesn't. And I think we're kind of both pretty close to that mid-range, where maybe you're just a tad above and I'm a tad below. Like,
it needed like a dialogue or a certain dialogue or something kind of give it a punch.
And that's the thing too, is I think the music is successful at conveying the story pretty well. It's almost like if you just moved a lot more of that exposition into the music and went full rock opera where everything was sung, or give us some more exposition scenes so that the music can really convey that emotion.
And especially if you're going to sing it, I have to a little more clarity what you're singing. Mm-hmm. There's no really subtitles. I don't really. It's hard to what exactly are the words you're singing, especially if I don't speak British.
Yeah, if I don't have that Cockney accent, it's really tough.
What are you saying again? And then you have to pause again. Yeah. So I think in certain subcultures really love this movie, and it's a big seller still. I think when it came out in the mid '80s, like Central Europe and Czech and a lot of the Central Europe countries love this movie and watched a lot of it and passed around copies and have T-shirts.
And much like Pool Hall Junkies, it's a tough film to find. That it's got kind of that missing movie quality to it, where you're like, ooh, what am I gonna unwrap when I finally get a chance to see this movie? And sometimes you unwrap a bit of a stinker, and sometimes you unwrap something that's really weird and unique and kind of stands on its own. Yeah. But now you know our thoughts about it, or our very mixed and kind of confused thoughts about it.
Which I think everybody, even if you love it, you're still kind of, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, I watched one other guy on YouTube talking about this film, and he said it was something where I don't really know why I like it. I don't even know if I do like it, but I keep watching it. And that's kind of how I felt about The Keep, which we talked about this year too. It's not a great movie, but I do find myself drawn to it. I've watched The Keep twice since filming our episode. And I just find myself being pulled toward, and I think maybe that's again if this movie reels you in, I would say give it a try if you're into this kind of movie.
The scene with the vampire's living room, pleading his case, how dare he challenge me? It is set up really well. I loved all the red about it, and of course vampires love red.
And that pool table with the coffin. Oh, that was amazing. That was really, really cool.
If you want to challenge somebody, have a coffin pool table, just distract them.
Yep, and then just keep asking your father what he thinks about everything. Definitely a weird movie, but definitely worth discussing with you guys today. Yeah. If you guys haven't seen it, go ahead and seek out a copy. If you've got streaming services, I came across it on the Shout TV app, which is a wonderful little B-movie app. It's got some good content on there. So give it a watch and let us know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below. If you guys get the chance, please check out our Patreon. Patreon.com/KyleandNickOnFilm. Got the link down in the description for you as well. If you guys can't support from the Patreon, though, give us a like and a subscribe. Share the video. These are free things you can do that can help support our channel and kind of get the conversation going. Because we like talking movies with you guys. We like talking movies with each other.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So, yeah. Become a team member.
Yeah, and thank you guys for joining us. We got one more video left on our Pool Hall Junkies that we'll get to with you guys next week, and then we'll close out our second season of episodes with, we're not going to talk about it. It's a surprise. We'll see you next time.